All right, Matt Gouget, Get Better Every Day podcast. Excited to have a special guest on today, Juan Ron. We've got a real estate entrepreneur, a family man, a husband, a father, involved in his church. So you're a man that's got your focus on faith and family, and of course the real estate gig, and a new member to your family, which we'll jump into. But maybe give folks a minute or two of who you are.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thank you so much, Matt, for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited and super grateful for the opportunity as well. But yeah, I think I'm a pretty simple guy, chasing the American dream. Yeah, having an opportunity to be able to just pursue real estate is a chance to maybe set our family up financially, and then very much involved in our faith, as you said. Being able to see people's lives transformed through that has been a blessing. And then, yeah, taking care of family. And like you said, we have a newborn. So been busy juggling all of that and figuring it all out. So
yeah, a 10-week-old, man. I think anybody who's a parent can relate. If you can remember, if you don't remember and you're listening and you're a parent, it's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of wandering through the house and a little bit of a daze. It's a good dream that you're in because it's all joy and this new humans in your life, but it's not easy, right? So from what I remember, my oldest son, who's 13, wouldn't let me put him down, so I just had to do laps around the kitchen. And I remember counting one night just to see like how many laps am I really doing around this kitchen, and it was in the hundreds. But yeah, thanks for taking the time to be on. I listened to you on another podcast and really was inspired through your story, because I know you're doing the real estate thing and you've got that up and running with Kinetic. It hasn't just been all sunshine and rainbows. Didn't grow up with a silver spoon. Didn't have buckets of money or business opportunity handed to you. So maybe first tell me a little bit about Kinetic Real Estate, and maybe we'll rewind and talk about the background.
yeah, absolutely. So Kinetic Real Estate started in 2019 by my business partner. His name is Kevin Cruz. He's been in real estate for about 6 or 7 years, and he got the opportunity to start this company. And we've been scaling it since. In 2020, first year, the company did about 50-ish million in volume. Last year, which was the second year in 2021, the company as a whole did about over 200 million. And this year, we're on track to do about between 300 and 350 million in volume. So super fun, been scaling that business and getting a chance to now work with about 50 plus real estate agents between the Bay Area, California, and also in Sacramento. So yeah, super excited about that. Even with a changing market, just looking how to pivot and do things a little bit differently. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. We focus a lot on collaboration and the team and things like that. So
Yeah,
it's been great.
I love it, man. Anybody who's in the real estate space knows that 2022 is a lot different than 2021. So the fact that you've almost doubled in a year where quite frankly a lot of people have struggled is a testament to you guys must be doing something right. So hats off to Kinetic Real Estate and the stuff you guys have going on over there. I'd love to get into your story, and mainly because some of the conversation we had is I want to inspire people from all walks of life, all background, no matter what they're doing. You see someone like yourself who's having success, but it wasn't a straight line, and there was hurdles to overcome. So maybe take us all the way back to your childhood and where you started, and that'll set us up to have some good conversations around overcoming obstacles.
Yeah, I actually think that we were talking about this before, right? But it's like the obstacles that you encounter in the present moment, sometimes you don't realize what that's really setting you up for. And you almost become somewhat comfortable being uncomfortable. And then you can actually take a lot more on, professionally or with what you're building. So something that I think that would be maybe valuable to share is my parents are both Chinese immigrants. So they both immigrated from China in the 80s, and they immigrated from China to Mexico, which is a little bit unique, right? You don't see too many Asian people in Mexico. So I grew up in Mexico for my first 10 years. And in my first 10 years that we lived there, I have two older sisters, my mom, my dad, and then at one point, my grandma, my grandpa were living with us, and we lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo with 7 people. So something I remember vividly is that 5 of us actually slept in one room.
Wow.
My parents, my mom, my dad, my sisters, and me. It was one room that just had 2 full-size bed and 1 twin bed, and I used to sleep on the twin bed. And my mom and my dad would sleep in one of the full-size beds, and then my 2 sisters slept in the other full-size bed. And that was normal for me. And can you imagine in the morning, right? 7 people trying to get ready in one bathroom, and we would just like, cycle. And that was normal for me, right? I just didn't know any different. And looking back at it now, I think that things like that really shaped me being so grateful of like every opportunity that I have, or even everywhere that I'm at. There's nothing that is too uncomfortable, I would say, right? Where I'm like, man, looking back at where I came from, like every day is a blessing. Like every opportunity that I get to live the life that I'm living now is just, I don't know, it's just a bliss.
Yeah, yeah, I love that story, and there's countless stories like that all over the place where, no matter where you start, everyday people, you started the podcast saying, I'm just a simple guy. Everyday people, with enough steps in the right direction and enough, drive and ambition can create amazing things, great things. And you talked about, the reason why you're doing it, for your family, which I love and commend and aligned with you there. Appreciating things for what they are. I lived in Mexico in 2003 and 2004. I didn't share that with you before, but I did, a study abroad. And there's 2 things that forever stick with me. And one was a 2-week period where I stayed with some friends in Mexico City over Christmas. And, they truck in propane tanks of gas for warm water. And I took cold showers for 2 weeks. And I can tell you right now, at 42 years old, almost 20 years removed from that, when I'm in the shower, I have like this feeling of gratitude. Like I've got warm water every day I turn my shower on, which is huge. And then, being a struggling student, I had an empty fridge. And so like the 2 things for me that are really, really simple, but if people could like see inside my heart, like I have a full fridge, it fills me up like nothing else. I've got warm water in my shower and it fills me up. And it's funny, right? Because you think about like the mortgage business and all the other success and trophies, but like the full fridge and the warm water, I don't take for granted because of my experiences. And you said that, and I think you said it really well. You're able to appreciate things at a high level because you've been in a position where you didn't have things, or you don't take that stuff for granted. So I love it, man. I'd love for you to tell the story too about your introduction to schooling, because I think that was probably another challenge too that you had to overcome, and it had enough impact on you where you have some memories from being 4.5.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it was one of my first memories as a child, and it was when I first started kindergarten. So what happened is that my parents were immigrants from China, moved to Mexico. So we grew up my first 10 years in Mexico, but we were in a border town. So the town that we lived in Mexico was called Mexicali, Baja California, which was in Mexico, but it's a bordering town to California. And on the California side, it's a town called Calexico, California, which is I spent my next 8 years there after 10. But what my parents ended up doing is that because they had a vision for their kids, for me and my sisters, to be able to learn English and eventually come to the US, they put us in private school in the United States. So we were crossing the border every day. We would walk across the border every day, walk about a mile to school in order to go to private school in California. So funniest thing is that my parents my native language, my first language I ever learned was Cantonese, which is what my parents speak, specifically a dialect called Toisan. But that was my first language. And the second language, because I was living in Mexico, was Spanish, right? Where everyone around me spoke Spanish in Mexico. And when I first went to school in kindergarten, I was, I think, 4.5 years old. The only teacher in that school that didn't speak Spanish was the kindergarten teacher. So literally, my native language is Chinese. All my friends in the classroom, everyone speaks Spanish, and the teacher only spoke English. Right. So I was in this classroom so uncomfortable because I didn't feel like I had a voice to speak, because I didn't know if people could understand me. And I think that that was one of my most core memories. That was my first core memory as a child. And that imprinted so much in me, because now I feel like I don't feel like out of place. Everywhere I go, I feel like I can adapt, and I can kind of make a way to fit in. And it reminds me of something I heard later on, when I was an adult, and it said something along the lines of, when like when you're hard on yourself, right? Life is easy, but when you're easy on yourself, life is hard. And it's almost like I didn't have the choice to choose that I was going to go through hard, but it just happened to be. And because that was so hard, it feels like some of the other areas in my life feel a little bit lighter, a little bit easier, because of all the challenges that I had to overcome, even being so young, and with something as simple as language, right? Something that we take maybe for granted, that your neighbor speaks the same language, or your colleague or your coworker or everyone around you speaks English, for example, right? But imagine if you went to another country where you didn't speak that language, and you're trying to communicate and fit in and all these different things. So
Yeah, I love that story, man. I appreciate you retelling it for me, because I heard it on the past pod, but it's a good one, and something you said. I have to pull this out for listeners, because it's super important. That I've heard that quote as well. When you do what's hard, life is easy, and when you do what's easy, life is hard. That can go for a number of different things, and you get used to being uncomfortable, and so uncomfortable isn't a place that you're afraid of. And to grow a business, to change with your health, to overcome addiction, to do a number of things that people are trying to do when they're trying to get better every day, it takes being able to walk through a bunch of uncomfortable. And so, to your point, you didn't really have a choice, but every day, people have choices. It's like, okay, you want to build a business, you say you want to build a business, you're gonna have to do these uncomfortable things for 8 hours a day for a year before you see any results. Are you willing and able to do that? Right? You want to lose weight, you have to follow this program, you have to go to the gym this many days, uncomfortable, but you'll get the result. And to your point, like, you've you've gone through enough challenge that was just presented to you in your life, and you got nowhere to go but forward, and it prepared you for that. So I like it, man. What would you say was something that kept you going, that inspired you to continue even when it was hard?
yeah, I think seeing my parents as an example was such an inspiration. I didn't realize it when I was young, but looking back at it now, I think that they paid an unbelievable price. After immigrating from China to Mexico, my dad picked up a job as a cook, and my mom was working at a restaurant as well. And they ended up saving enough money to start their own restaurant. So then for the next 20 years, starting the year that I was born, in fact, they owned a restaurant, but they were self-employed. So my dad was the main cook at the restaurant. My mom was like the general manager, or, cashier, etc. And we did have a few employees here and there, but it's very much a small family-owned business. And the 2 days that the restaurant was closed for the entire year was December 25th, which is Christmas, and January 1st, which is New Year's, which meant that the only 2 days that my parents took off out of the year were those 2 days out of the year. So seeing my parents work, 14-hour days, 20 years straight, literally my dad never called a day off, like showed up every day, rain, shine, sick, healthy, whatever the case may be. And just seeing that as a kid, and didn't even understand that that was not normal, right? Just seeing that as what was normal, like showing up whether they liked it or not, whether they felt like it or not. And they just sacrificed all their social life. They didn't really have much going on outside of the restaurant business. And later on, my mom ended up starting another swap meet business. I'm sure you're familiar what that is.
Yeah.
And I ended up running that when I was in high school, on the weekends. I mean, this 15-year-old, right, working at a swap meet by myself. My mom would just open the swap meet and I would show up and be there all day, and just being inspired by the sacrifice that they paid, right? And I feel like even now, what motivates me, it's like, in honor of their sacrifice, I'm trying to take advantage of every opportunity and almost like taking it from here where they left off and taking the baton and running, as far as I can to leave the next wave or the next generation in a different place with a different platform.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I think that like there's so many, especially like the immigrant story. My wife and her family immigrating from Yugoslavia, Albania, taking jobs in factories in Chicago and walking through the snow. But one of my favorite stories, I'd love to share it here, is talking to my wife's grandma, Dicey. And she's 92 years old now, still kicking
Wow.
and beautiful and healthy. Was talking to me about a funny story in Chicago where it was snow and blizzard and literally like the town shut down because weather was so bad. And she just knew that it was a work day. And so she was walking because she always walked. Right. And the fact that like the roads were closed and cars weren't, like, it was kind of just whatever. And, she got a quarter mile down the road, and somehow either a boss or somebody from work like stopped and said, like, what are you doing? Like, the factory shut down today, right? And like that's the type of work ethic that like inspires me so much. And a lot of immigrants might leave. I've got plenty of friends who tell me stories. Their dad is a military general, their dad is high status in another country, and then for future generations makes the sacrifice. I'm going to go become an Uber driver. I'm going to go, work in a factory. I'm going to take an entry-level job because I know what it's going to do for future generations. I'd love to transition to what does the generation do now to kind of pass on work ethic, pass on the same values when, you understand it's a little bit less hard for you, right? And you've got a little bit of a leg up because of what they've sacrificed. I think this is really interesting too, because somewhere on a podcast on Patrick Bet David, I think he talked about like, the first generation walks, the second generation drives an old beat up car, the third generation drives a, nice car, the fourth generation drives a Ferrari, and then it like repeats itself, right? And so your parents' generation, was walking two miles to work in a restaurant they own, and now your generation has a leg up. I find this interesting, and I think it's something that in your point in life with a 10-week-old child, it's probably something that's on your mind, as it is mine with my kids. What's the plan, I guess, to impart kind of wisdoms and work ethic and all that stuff on the next generation?
Yeah, I for sure have been thinking about that, and I think that it's something that every parent should be thinking. The reason why is because if we don't think about this, then it'll just happen, right? Not without a design. And personally, for me, this is what I say now, right? I mean, I have a 10-week, 2-month-old, and this is my thought process so far, is that I don't plan on leaving much money and assets behind. And the reason behind that is because if my child knows, or my children know, that they're going to have something left behind for them, that almost becomes their plan B, and they are not going to have to give it all they've got with whatever they're doing. And personally, for me, I rather pass down teachings, fundamentals, principles, philosophies, values that can set them up for them to build something strong themselves, rather than passing on something materialistic or even resources or whatnot. I think that what I can do that would be helpful would maybe help them have access to resources, but not necessarily give them the resources directly. And I think that that's my plan right now. We'll see as the years go by. But I say something that this is a saying that I came up with one time. I have this joke that every time I'm at the steam room at the gym, I somehow clear my mind, and these random thoughts come to mind. But I one day came up with this idea that every new level of success, every new level of growth, every new level in your life requires a new level of sacrifice, right? Meaning the price that you've paid up to this point in your life, right, will only get you to this point. So if you really want to go to the next level of success, of growth, of the next, level in your relationship with your spouse or whatever the case may be, it's going to be a complete new sacrifice. Like some people go all the way up until like they get engaged and they buy the engagement ring and that's the biggest price they paid. Well, guess what? The wedding is going to be more expensive, right? And then you go through the wedding, and I have a feeling that I don't know if this is correlated or not, but most people, the wedding is the most expensive thing they've ever invested into a relationship. And then they wonder why we have a 50% divorce rate in this country, right? It's because they stopped sacrificing for that relationship. And every new level of your relationship, of your business, of life, right? Even at the gym, right? Let's talk about something more practical, right? If you've lifted a certain amount of weight every week for the last 10 weeks, you need to pay a new price. You need to, go to the next level and lift more weights. And I think that that's the same with even instilling new values to your children, is that they're going to see whether you're growing or you're not. Right? It's easy to get to a certain point and be comfortable and say, I've made it, or I'm comfortable here. Right. But truthfully, if we want to go to the next level, you almost have to like work even harder to show them like what hard work is. Right. It's not something that you can talk out of experience. You almost have to show it to them so they have something to emulate. Like, oh, hard work means a full days of work. Hard day means sometimes you don't sleep the same time that you wanted to. Hard work means sometimes you wake up earlier than you really want to, right? So I think that showing them in a way where they can actually, rather than just teaching them by philosophy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that, I love the analogies. Like the gym analogies are great. And, to your point for parents out there, kids see what you do, and that resonates a lot more than what you say. You can say, hey, you gotta
100%.
work hard, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Well, dad, you're on the couch, right? Versus like dad's dragging me to open houses. I'm dragged into dad's office while he's recording videos on a Sunday night. I'm dragged to dad's office while he's doing this. Like that's showing them and not just telling them. And the analogy that you use, which I really like, is like, got to pay a new price. Something I wanted to add to it as well, right? Is like, you lift the 10-pound weight and you're going to see certain results. Then you start lifting 20 and you pay a new price for every level you unlock. For us parents out there, I think we would do a disservice if we just hand the kid the 40-pound weight. He doesn't know how to lift it correctly unless he's lifted the 10-pound weight, then the 20-pound weight, and the 30-pound weight. And so I know how good it feels to build something on your own, but also how like the foundation that's built to get to here is, I've got to do more to unlock the next level, but I need all this foundation and all this growth that I've had before it to be able to even get started. And so
I love that, man.
yeah,
That was so good. That was incredible. Yeah.
yeah.
That even painting that analogy together, and it's like that is, I'll take that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I think we're all cognizant and thinking of it, right? Anybody who's a parent is like, man, I don't want, to have this next generation, be spoiled. Like the things that me and you went through and cold water and in a school where they, didn't speak the same language, and 7 kids in one, or 7, adults in one 2-bedroom house. Like they might not see that. They just see, sitting row 10 at the Kings game and getting to go downstairs and get free food. Like, at times I think to myself, like, man, like, am I doing it wrong? Right? Like you come from nothing, you want to give them everything, but you can't, right? You got to hold some
Right.
stuff back. And especially when it comes to work ethic and earning it on your own. It's a challenge. I know that it's a challenge for me. It's a challenge for a lot of people that I'm aligned with. And so the fact that you're thinking about it while the kiddo's still young is a good sign.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that even now we're it's funny because he's 2 months and we've already took him on appointments, brought him to a work retreat. So like we're really looking to adapt them into our life rather than us changing our lifestyle in order to adapt a newborn. And I feel like some parts of it is going to be uncomfortable for him, but I think in the long run it'll probably be a benefit for him to see his parents like work and do it. Mhm.
Right, right. Yeah. And I think too, I've told this story to some folks, and no knock on my parents, but they would drag me to casinos. They would drag me to bars and to places where they were at. So it wasn't necessarily, the best example. And, my 13-year-old who plays basketball, actually both my 13, my 9-year-old play a bunch of basketball. They love sports. They're super active, did a 5K last weekend for my 9-year-old's school. Those boys have been in gym since they were 6 months old, right? I remember the carrier at 24-Hour Fitness, and then I went to Cal Fit, and then I went to Uriah Faber's gym, and now I'm back to Cal Fit playing basketball with my boys. That's something that I can't just say health is important. You should keep yourself physically fit and move, right? They're literally, it's been ingrained in them from the start, and you've taken them to work. Work is something that we do as a family, and this is how we have the nice things we have because mom and dad are out there working. So applaud you for that, and I agree 1,000%. They're going to pick up on that stuff at 10 weeks old, probably not yet, but as time goes by. Does your wife, does she work in the business too?
She's a real estate agent. So she's a real estate agent at Kinetic Real Estate. So it's incredible because she was looking to take the rest of the year off. My son was born in September 26th. So she was like, you know what, for the rest of the year, I'm just going to take off. And as you know, the market, the way it is, she's have clients that are so loyal and so, we're so grateful for them that keep referring her clients, and she's just getting referrals. So she's literally back at work now. Part-time with a newborn and everything, but yeah, it's been incredible. So she's a full-time agent. Mhm.
Yeah, that's gonna be an awesome story for is it boy or girl? You had a boy?
It's a boy. Mhm.
Okay,
His name
yeah.
is Roman. Mhm.
Roman. Yeah, so Roman is going to be able to tell the story. My mom was taking me on listing appointments when I was 8 weeks old. So I've been around real estate since the day I was born. That'll be one for a 2040 podcast for sure.
Yeah, what's funny is that he was actually going to showings and open houses and everything up until my wife was delivering. So literally she was 8.5, 9 months pregnant. And I think that we had some listings that she was just like, man, I just need to show up for the owner. And she would show up for 2 or 3 hours, but he was doing open houses in the womb. And then now he's doing open houses out. And so it's like literally yeah, and he's super comfortable. Like you could see that out and about, he's actually he'll sleep more and stuff like that. So he's kind of used to that lifestyle.
Out there networking from a young age. I love it, man. Well, I really appreciate your time, and I'm going to be cheering you on, Kinetic Real Estate, and you and your family personally. Any parting words or anything else that you want to add? I'll have links in the description to how to get a hold of you and Kinetic Real Estate and whatnot. But any parting words of wisdom?
I would just say just the market that we're going into now, specifically, is something that comes to mind is that nothing can be created out of the past, right? So talking about what the interest rate used to be, or what the market looked like, or what the stock market price looked like, nothing new can be born out of that. So then the only way we get to create something new is create a new vision, right? Of what's going to drive us, what's exciting for us. Even if you're like not in a great place in your life and going through a lot of pain or a lot of struggle, that vision of who you could be is going to be the motivation that I've drawn in order for me to get myself out of that situation, right? So I think it's really relevant in this moment where maybe people aren't having all the circumstances line up in their life, and you can draw out of a new vision, getting clear on what you want, what you're pursuing, and then having that on a daily basis be your motivation of where you're going and drawing out of that inspiration.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's a great way to end it. And get better every day, listeners. I hope that this resonates with some folks, regardless of your situation, regardless of the past. I know hundreds and thousands of people that have had a ton of success, And 99.9% of them have gone through something. They've been on the wrong path. They've been in a bad place. And, you know, any day you can just start walking in the right direction, and you can, you know, one step in front of the other, create something new for yourself. I always like the analogies when people talk about, you know, writing your own book. The first 3-4 chapters could be bad, right? And then the hero can turn it around. And the second half of the book is a great one. You know, I think that, you know, if I were honest with myself, 31 years, those first 31 chapters weren't the best. You know, I'm going to write an amazing, like, you know, chapter 32 through 90, and I'm actively working on it. So thanks again, man. I appreciate that. We'll end it there. Thanks again.
Awesome, man. Thank you.